Hey, hockey fans, T-Boss is 13-3 here, coming to you with another top-shelf guest. Burnaby, British Columbia native, former Nebraska Omaha Maverick, Nashville Predator, Minnesota Wild, Boston Bruin, and Colorado Avalanche defenseman. Hell, that's quite a resume. Greg Zanon. This episode is sponsored by Riverside Bike and Skate, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Kelly Heating and Electric, Hertel Law, Raleigh's Coach Club, and Northwoods Therapy Associates. Mogi.
Hey, we're excited to be visiting with Greg this morning at the St. Croix Valley Recreation Center in Stillwater, Minnesota, specifically in the Stillwater Ponies High School locker room. I got to tell you, Coach, it smells pretty good in here without all the equipment laying around.
It usually does. I put a lot of time into cleaning this when they all left, so hopefully it smells good for a little while.
Right, sounds good.
Until they get back here in June.
Right.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Born and raised in Burnaby, British Columbia, correct?
That's correct.
You live and coach high school hockey in Stillwater, Minnesota. How did you end up here?
I guess it was a long trek, left Burnaby to go to school in Nebraska and then found my way playing pro. And when we were here, when I was playing with the Wild, my oldest daughter started going to school here, and she's got some learning delays and some things that weren't right with her at the time. And when hockey was over, it was kind of just the place that she had doctors here, and we knew people here. She started school here, so it was all about getting her back to where she was comfortable. And my other two kids were small enough where wherever we went. They were just along for the ride, and they've moved in and done everything great here. So everything's solid here. And my wife is actually from Hastings, so that helps out too, having a little family close.
Just down the river a little ways, eh?
Just down the river a little ways.
All right.
Close enough, but far enough away.
There you go. I understand how that works. I think we all do.
Yes, we do.
All right. So do you work with the Stillwater Youth Hockey Association on what skills you'd like to see your players possess by the time they get up to high school?
I kind of keep that up to the coaches that are coaching throughout the year. I mean, I do my own camps throughout the summer from mites all the way up to the high school age. So I go, June all the way through the end of August, and then we take a little break, and then I try to do some pre-tryout camps for, again, squirts through Bantams, and then I do hold a 4-week mite camp before mites start. And we just go over the little things and, just areas that I like to see, skills that I like to teach. But I think it's important for them to learn from everybody. It's not, you don't want to just keep hearing that same voice all the time. I think it gets stale, it gets old. And so I let the coaches, and not that I let them, I like them to have the freedom to do what they want, teach what they want. And that way a kid's learning, when they get to us then at the high school level, we can teach them something that we want and they understand. So
sounds good.
Very well said. When did you get introduced to the game?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I started skating. From what I was told, I started skating right after I learned to walk on the old, what do they call it? Like the sled skates, where it has the double blade on one thing. You strap them to your shoes. And there's pictures of me somewhere my mom has in the basement of those things on there. And then I actually started playing when I was 3 in youth hockey. So a little before the time, but they allowed us to do it. And so I played, I think at that time it was called Tyke. I mean, now it's mite. So I think I played 5 years of Tyke and just kind of got into it. My dad wasn't an ice hockey player. He played a lot of ball hockey, the old box hockey, and he played that and won some national championships. So I kind of grew up around hockey, not so much ice hockey, but and then just kind of went with it. And it was definitely a passion that drove me to where I ended up.
So did your dad get you going? Did you have some buddies playing, relatives?
I just think it was just getting on the ice. It was, we used to do the family skate on Friday nights over at the public skate at night, and it was just something fun to do and get us out of the house type of thing. And it just kind of grew into the hockey world and just kind of took off from there. And I think it was more just to get us involved in something to stay out of trouble. I mean, we were young at that time, but I think that was the thought process of getting them involved in sports. And
sure.
Hockey, baseball were kind of the things I did growing up, and hockey was obviously number one, but
sure, something constructive.
Yeah.
Rather
than being destructive, right?
Well, a lot of kids go that way, unfortunately. Yeah. I wish more kids would channel themselves into something more productive, but the ones that do, I think they see the benefits.
Yeah, for sure.
So you did play another sport. You did play baseball as well. Do you think that helped with hand-eye coordination or other muscle growth?
I guess. I mean, I'm just a big proponent of, we always tell our kids, even the high school kids, go do something else. Like in the springtime, it's not always about hockey. I mean, our school for spring sports, we got like trap shooting and we got some cool things. I'm like, go shoot trap or do something. We've had a couple kids do some trap shooting but for me, it was just getting away from hockey. Like as much as you love something, stepping away sometimes too is the best. And I always like putting the gear away and getting out the baseball glove, playing baseball. And then, you get that feeling in your belly when it's getting close to hockey season. You're like, oh yeah, time to pull the skates back out, throw the glove back in the closet. And that's just the kind of the way we grew up, and, just doing things at different levels and different areas was, I think it definitely helped hand-eye wise. I mean, there's not a whole lot of conditioning in baseball.
No.
But no. Hand-eye and just I think for me, it was just getting away really helped, and, concentrate on something else.
So Burnaby, did they have their own youth hockey association that you were involved with? And can you tell us a little bit about your progression through the youth years? So
there's a Burnaby like association, and then we played at a club. Reason we did that was, my dad had to work early in the mornings, and at the association practices were normally like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh. The club, we were able to practice after school. So it was a lot easier for us to get to practice. So dad put us in there, and mom put us in there, and mom usually ended up taking us because it was like a 4 o'clock practice and dad was still at work. But we played at the Burnaby Winter Club growing up. And it was just, hockey up there, it was a lot. There's kind of like similar to here to Minnesota, a lot of teams close. You didn't have to do a lot of travel. You played within, we call, the Lower Mainland is the league that we played in. And it consisted of like Burnaby, Langley, all the surrounding areas, real good hockey. Different than here, that you played like in a play-in round. So you could play as high as AAA, but you played in a play-in round. I think it was like a 10-game play-in round, and it was like an exhibition series. Wow. And wherever you finished in that 10 games is what level you played. So you either played Tier 1, or you played AAA, you played AA, or you played Single A. And then all the AAA teams played in their thing. And real competitive hockey. A lot of guys that I played against when we were younger, I went college, and some of them played pro, but just lots of hockey. I mean, our season was tryouts for the end of August, and we played right through the end of April, middle of April, end of March, middle of April. So
that's a long year.
It's a long year.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you began to excel in the sport. You went on to play juniors with, I think it's called the Salsa.
Yep. Victoria Salsa.
All right.
Okay. How did they get that name? Any idea?
So the owner of the team owned what in Canada is called Taco Time.
Okay.
So it's basically Taco Bell, but a Canadian version of Taco Bell, and it was called Taco Time. He owned Taco Time. So we had it was a chili pepper and dressed
cool
up
logo.
in hockey gear.
It was a cool logo, man.
on our jerseys. And it was, basically how they got the name. I don't even know if they have a BC Hockey League team, because they now have a WHL team there in Victoria again. So.
Okay. Wow. What was that like stepping up? Now you're playing juniors. Obviously the tempo's a little bit tougher, probably a little bit more physical. How did you adapt?
Definitely a learning curve. I mean, especially back when I played junior, fighting was a thing, and it's not so much anymore. I know it does happen, but fighting was a thing. I mean, I played my second year Bantam. I was 15. My coach that I had a second year Bantam was like, you got to go play junior, go play Tier 2. I wasn't a horrible student. So he's like, Dubs, maybe not the way for you to go to college or try anyways. And so I went and left home, did 3 camps the summer of after my Bantam year, and made all 3 main camps, had to decide which one I wanted to go to. And, our coach, Coach Davidson, coached Paul Correa growing up. And we were very close to the Correas. I actually played with Paul's younger brother, Martin, all through youth sports. So that was kind of a connection there. I went there, made the team, and the learning curve of, you're 16 playing against 20-year-olds, and now you're playing against men, and it's different. And, I think I only played in 35, maybe 40 games out of the 65 that we played. Which was tough because I came from playing every night and in youth, and now you're going there. And a lot of the times when you played, you got the tap on the shoulder and you had to go fight somebody. And I think I had 17 fights my first year. And, but that was the way it was. And, got into playing, and then the next year was kind of my come out year. I think I had 35 points and was able to, really navigate my way. Didn't have to do as much fighting. You did it more as a sticking up for your teammates or sticking up for yourself. And, but that it was different, definitely, especially buses. So in Victoria, it's a 2-hour ferry from the mainland. There was 3 teams on the island: us, Victoria, Cowichan Valley, and Nanaimo.
Okay.
And then there was Powell River, which was like another 3 hours up plus a ferry across the mainland, or you're going to the mainland. And then you got your 12, 18-hour trips up to Prince George Trail. And, these are things week in and week out. You're doing them, plus you're going to school. And it's like everybody going through junior back in those days. And I don't know if it's a little easier now, but, you play 3 and 3. You're playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You get home, you're going to school on Monday. You don't have the choice.
No time off.
A lot of sleeping on the bus and sleeping on the floors. But, I wouldn't change it. We had a blast. We had a bunch of great teams, and you look back and it's like, oh God, you're complaining at the time, but you look back and you're like, but that was fun. Like, it was a lot of fun. So
think about it now. Could you do it now at this age?
Oh, I don't know. Not the way we used. I don't think I can get into some of the positions that I got into to sleep on the bus. And we didn't have a sleeper bus. I'm not talking bunks. We're just on a normal charter bus, and you're curling up on your 2 seats. You were lucky. Well, my first year, 16-year-old year, you never got your own seat, so you sat with a buddy. Yeah. You usually positioned yourself with you each had a head on each other to sleep, but. Yeah, now I don't know if I could do it. My body doesn't get into those positions anymore. But I even in the minors, when I played on my way out, I played two years back in the American League, and we were on the bus from San Antonio to Oklahoma, and it was 8-9 hour bus rides. We'd do it at night. We'd have a sleeper bus, but the playing the cards and the camaraderie you have with the boys. I mean, it's so worth it in the end. For as much as it sucks to do it, it's worth it. So
your last year, you joined the South Surrey Eagles, and you really broke out. You scored 71 points and had 154 PIMs. What changed your game that season?
I just think it was it was just the progression of being comfortable. I mean, I had the 35 points my second year, requested a trade. That's how I ended up in South Surrey. Was our coach had left. Owner was kind of being a little crazy on some of the things that he was doing with, how he was feeding the team and stuff like that. So I already had committed for my scholarship to Nebraska. So I wanted to play a little closer to home, not be on the island. So I was able to drive home and see my mom and dad whenever I wanted to. And,
nice.
I think it was just a coming out party, just, being a third year, being a veteran. We had a really good team that year. We had some overage dub guys that had come back to play with us, and it makes a lot of difference when you're able to snap the puck around and score goals. And it was just the team that we had. I think, it wasn't anything that I did differently. It was just opportunity. I played a whole bunch, and it was a real fun year, a real fun group of guys. And especially I wasn't going to school, which was my dad said you had to go to school or get a job. I got a job for 2 weeks learning how to sharpen skates. And I'm like, Dad, this isn't for me. I just want to play hockey. And he broke down and he let me just play hockey. So it was, we would get up in the morning. We'd have to meet at the rink by 10 o'clock. So we were not sleeping all day. And then we'd go and we learned how to curl, and we did all these fun things, and we, go home and play cards with a group of guys, and then be back at the rink for 3:30 for practice when the young kids came out of school. And it was just a great year to ease into going to college. So it was a lot of fun.
Sounds like it.
When did you start getting looked at by colleges, and how did you end up at Omaha?
I started right away my first year as a 16-year-old, now my daughter's getting them. It's postcards and it's emails. It wasn't any of that. It was letters like, hey, we're interested. It would take another week to send one back to give you a response. But just started right away. Interestingly enough, a lot of Ivy League schools were interested right away, which I didn't have Ivy League grades, that's for sure. And after I took my SAT, it was clear that I wasn't an Ivy League guy. So just kind of those, and they were great. They're just your grades and your test scores aren't going to get you in here, but we'll help you anyway. And Coach David Quinn, who's now San Jose's coach, he was up in the BC League a lot, and especially back in those days. So I think on our team in Nebraska, my first year, we had like 4 or 5 guys from the BC League, 4 or 5 from the Alberta Junior League. So he was a big proponent in Canada, and he came and watched and liked my game. And as my second year, as I started kind of coming out of my shell and being a little more offensive, he really bought into what I was doing. And I committed at the end of that second year, and then told him I'd like to play one more year just to kind of get that confidence. And I think which led to the 71 points, not worrying about where am I going to go? Am I going to get I had it. It was in the bag. Now it was just about playing. And, so there's a lot of scout. I think I still think they do a lot of scouting up there for colleges, but back in our time, I mean, like I said, I think 3/4 of our team in Nebraska were Canadians. So I think it was a big proponent. USHL was just kind of really getting going and getting to where it is now. So I think they did just a lot of scouting up in Canada.
Did anybody else look at you for college? Besides the Ivy Leagues?
I mean, not really besides the Ivy Leagues. And I committed to Nebraska pretty early once they really showed some interest. The thing that drew me there was they were a new program. The year that I went there, so my freshman year was their first year in the CCHA. The 2 years prior, they were independent. Okay. So for me, it was all about playing. I'm not a guy that likes to sit in the stands, and they were going to give me the opportunity to play right out of the gate as a freshman. And that was the most important thing to me. So I committed there, and it was a perfect spot.
Was Mike Kemp the head coach at that time?
Mike Kemp was the head coach, yeah.
And I think he went there from Wisconsin, didn't he?
When he took over, yeah, when Nebraska came in, he came from Wisconsin. Yeah.
Right. So what was he like to play for?
He was great. I mean, he was... We called him Iron Mike. He was kind of like Mike Keenan, everyone. I mean, not as hard, but kind of came across that way. And what he said was go. And he was a smaller Iron Mike, though. He had. Now we give him a hard time. We're like, you had little man syndrome back then, man. Holy crap! Little bald guy, mustache like Mike Keenan. Like holy. But he was great. I mean, the whole coaching staff. We had Steve Rollick, who's a local guy here, and he was our forward coach. David Quinn was the D coach. And they just did a great job of, bringing us together. And that first year, I mean, we were really a ragamuffin team. We had, guys that they had just brought in just to kind of fill roster spots for the previous 2 years. And then I was like the first scholarship class, and we just came together as a group and actually had a really great season, made the CCHA playoffs right away, beat Michigan in the nice. CCHA semifinals, and then we got stomped by Michigan State in the final. But it was great for our program to put ourselves on the map. So
absolutely.
What was the skill set you were bringing to the junior teams and to the college teams that they noticed that they wanted you?
For me, I think it was just my drive and back then I actually had offensive ability. I mean, I was able to, get the puck up at the ice and make things happen. I mean, I always blocked shots. That was always part of my game. I was hard to play against. I mean, especially back in the days before the rules changed. I mean, anything really went. So that was kind of
little holding,
punching in the back of the head, slashing the back of the knee. Hard to play against in front of the net. You didn't want to come in front of the net when I was there because it was going to be miserable. And I'm thinking that's what kind of drew them. I think it was the compete level that I had. I mean, I would do anything, and even throughout my career in the NHL, I'd do anything for the team. Anything that it took, I mean, to get the W was my mentality. So,
well, you mentioned blocking shots. We had a former NHL player on by the name of Craig Ludwig, who was known for blocking shots. Okay, and that was quite a story he had. But how do you compare to him? Were you the guy that got down? Did you start out with your shin pads in college and keep them all through your pro career?
From my first year pro, I have the same shin pads now. I mean, they don't look the same, but they were the same parts of them. Anyways, the inner parts of them, the amount of time, you break a kneecap but the way they were fitted, I mean, we would just replace the kneecap. I never wanted new shin pads. We would just find pieces that they were the old, God, I don't even remember. They were Jofas, but I can't remember the number on them. It was a real low number. Now they probably got a high number, but we'd always have to find replacement pieces to fit those. But it was just molded the way it had. And I mean, I had just like Craig, I'm sure you have extra pieces. You find out where you're getting hit mostly, and you try to add pads to those areas. And it was just kind of over time. And you finally, now I'll bring them out to skate with the guys. They're like, what the heck are those? And I'm like, well, that's what I used to wear. Now I'll wear my oldest daughter's shin pads because mine are too heavy to get around the rink. I'm not in shape enough. But it just, even like my breezers or my hockey pants, I had them made differently. I wore them a little bigger than what I probably should have been wearing, just because I knew if I went down, I could take up more space, and I had like an extra pad in the back of my hammy, and just things you learn as you go. I mean, you just don't want to be hurt. You get hit enough, you just don't want to be hurt. And I'm sure Craig probably said the same thing. And it was just a thing, you know. I tell kids nowadays is, if you don't commit to it, it's going to hurt more. You know what's coming. Commit. Get in front of it. Make sure your pads are facing the puck. The ones where your guys are like, and they're all turning around, that's when you get hurt. It's just a matter of getting in there and just sucking it up. And in the end, you're doing it for your team. So
are most of the guys in the NHL and even at the higher level, college and junior, are they wearing the same equipment like that? I mean, you're in the NHL. You can wear anything you want, get a new pair pretty much when you want.
I think it's like that. I think guys, you find something that fits and is comfortable. It's hard to get it to fit the same way. I mean, I wore the same shoulder pads from, I think I was either second year Pee Wee or first year Bantam, all the way through until I played my first year in Nashville. Wow. And I would fix them myself.
Pee Wee shoulder pads in the pros?
I would fix them with fishing line and keep them all together as much as I could. I wore them all through junior. And then I finally went to Nashville, and it's when they made the shoulder pad change and they added the foam. Your shoulder cap had to have so much foam on it or whatever. I came in one day and my shoulder pads were gone. I'm like, whoa. And Pete Rogers, who's still there in Nashville, was there. I'm like, where the hell are my shoulder pads? No, they're no good no more. I'm like, come on. And then it was actually a process finding another set of shoulder pads that felt comfortable. And a lot of guys, they just, cut the old caps off and sewed new ones on because guys wanted to feel the same way. And I was actually able to find a pair of Bauers that I really liked that had the legal pads in them, and they felt the same way. I think Andrew Burnett, while we were here in Minnesota, I think he ran his shoulder pad. He parked his car on top of them to try to break the pads down because we all had to make that change. And, your gear is something that needs to, it's always look good, feel good, play good. If you don't feel good in your gear, you're thinking about something else other than playing. So those are big things. I bet you there's a lot of guys. I mean, for me, gloves, skates, those things were easy. Those were easy to have brand new ones, and they felt good when they were brand new. Shoulder pads, shin pads, elbow pads. I mean, those are things that it's on your body that needs to feel the right way to feel good. So.
Son of a gun. Wow. Boy, that's awesome.
That's a lot of insight. That's pretty cool for all you kids out there who think you need new stuff every year. Take it from a pro. You don't.
Exactly.
You ended up getting drafted by Ottawa, but ended up in the Predators organization. How did that transition occur?
So I got drafted by Ottawa, left school after my 4 years, went to Ottawa's training camp. I had a contract, but we didn't sign it. And that was Ottawa's request. I don't think they were sure what they were getting into. Okay. Stayed in Ottawa for a month, had a really good training camp, ended up going down to Binghamton after the month, which I figured that's where I'd end up in the American League to start anyways. And they wanted to change the contract. They didn't like the numbers. They didn't like the terms. So my agent, me and my agent talked, and we're like, well, we're not changing it. And they just gave me my outright release, which was really, they could have really held it against me and tried to screw me over and kept me there and blah, blah, blah. But they gave me my outright release. So I was gone, went back to Omaha for like a week, and we were able to land a minor league deal in Milwaukee. So my first actual contract was just with the Milwaukee Admirals. Played there that 1 year and then signed a 2-way with Nashville and got into the Nashville system.
So your coaches in Milwaukee were Claude Noel and Todd Richards.
Yep.
What'd you learn from those guys?
Oh, they were awesome. Claude really kind of old school, really likes when you're a veteran, you're on his side if you're playing the right way. When you're a rookie, doesn't matter what you do, you're in trouble. I mean, I think I spent more times riding the bike because the team played a bad game than I've ever had in my life. And it was me and actually a kid I know from home who's my brother's age, Brandon Siegel. We were both there, rookies together, and he left junior to come after Christmas to play with us. And we'd be on the bike looking at each other like, what the hell did we do? And it was never, sometimes it was our fault, but there was a lot of times where it was just the way the team was playing and he needed to, but it really taught you how to be a pro. And maybe that was the whole lesson behind it and, getting on the bike after games and stuff like that. But Claude was great. Todd was awesome. They really were the two that transformed my game. I mean, I was an offensive defenseman, known offensive defenseman coming out of college, coming out of juniors even. That was who I was, and came into a team that had like 5 offensive defensemen, and they kind of came up to me after I think I only played like 2 out of the first 16 games or something like that. And I was like, okay, what needs to be done? Like, how do I get to play? I want to play. Like, I'm not a sit in the bleachers guy. And they're like, you got to be a shutdown. You got to learn how to be a shutdown D. You don't play that way. So I'm like, okay, let's work on it. And they worked with me every day. And, after practice, we'd be out there and talking about positioning and where I need to be to be able to shut teams down, and started playing after Christmas a lot more. And I think in the second half of the season, I ended up playing with Curtis Murphy, who was an unbelievable American League defenseman. I think he won the Eddie Shore at least two times for sure, which for the top defenseman in the league, and ended up being plus 35 in the second half of the season. And just changed the way I looked at the game. Like before it was always, I always thought I was a good defender, but my first thought was okay, get the puck, I got to go skate. Now it's make that first pass. You're this guy. And like I said, really, I think the main reason I ended up making it to the NHL was, the effort that they put in to help me to change my game, and my willingness to change and be something that maybe I really wasn't. But it was all about positioning, blocking shots, being mean in front of the net, and they worked with me every day on that.
Wow. For the young listeners out here, that's a hell of a lesson right there. You were willing to change to the dynamic of the game that your coaches needed you to be, and it was successful, and you ended up with a hell of a career. So that's kudos to you for taking that time to do it.
Well, and I even give them the kudos because they're the ones who were like, hey, this is, I was willing to do whatever it took to play. In my mind, that even with college, I went to Nebraska because I wanted to play hockey, and I wanted to play hockey. I didn't want to be in the bleachers, and the fact that they, took the extra time after practice, they had kids, they had their own stuff going on, but after practice, they'd spend, 20, 30 minutes out there just positioning where I needed to be. And it made a world, it means the world that I was able to get to where I was because of their effort.
So as a coach now yourself, have you ever had to have a conversation like that with one of your players or more of your players? Maybe they come in after a Bantam career and it's not translating at the high school level.
We had, and not so much that it was a conversation, but we had one player this year, and I just don't think he realized, what we're expecting out of him for this year. And he played varsity right away this year, and it was just that conversation of, hey, look, this is what we're looking for from you this year. Maybe next year it's different, but this year, this is what we need. And I think they understand. And my biggest thing, because of Claude and Todd and even Barry Trotz, my approach to coaching is we're very open, very honest. Sometimes it's going to hurt. You're not playing well. That's it, bottom line. But at least they know, right? Being just kind of secretive and moping around, and I don't think that does a player any good. So we're pretty open with the guys, what we want, kind of their roles. Roles change as, kids get hurt, or, year to year, your role is going to change. And the kid took it really well. And he played a lot of minutes for us this year, and as a 10th grader. So, and he was an offensive guy that his team looked upon last year, and he wasn't so much this year, but he was fine but he was playing.
Yeah.
And that's what I think kids got to look at. As long as you're playing, that's the important thing. You could be sitting on the bench. That's no fun.
No.
So, having that willingness to do what it takes to play the game, I think is huge.
Give a quick shout out to a few of our sponsors. Kelly Heating and Electric, dedicated to serving their customers' heating and electrical needs efficiently. They have been named one of Bryant's Medal of Excellence winners. They provide expert advice from a friendly staff that can provide you with the knowledge you need to make the best decisions on your next electrical, heating, or air conditioning project. And Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine has been committed to the healthcare needs of patients in western Wisconsin since 1954. The orthopedic surgeons and athletic trainers serve many area schools. Their success and reputation as an outstanding orthopedic clinic can be attributed to the teamwork of friendly, knowledgeable physicians and staff. And Riverside Bike and Skate, Eau Claire, Wisconsin's hockey headquarters, which is the oldest hockey store in the state of Wisconsin. Buy hockey gear from the people that play and know the game, and don't forget about their bicycle sales and service, as well as your paddle sports center for kayaks and canoes. Mogi.
All right. So, Greg, we know you spent a little time in the AHL, but most of your time in the NHL. So what are some of the large and small differences between those two leagues?
I think it's just the crispness. If that even crisp is not even really a word, but just the way the game is played is just everything is just, it's like moving up anywhere, quicker, faster, guys are bigger, stronger, but passes are on. I mean, we always said, especially when we were in the NHL, if it hits your tape, that's on you. You gotta, you gotta receive that pass. It's not on the passer at that point. And that's just the way that game's played. Everybody knows where they need to be. Everybody can play the system. And, we try to teach these guys here at the high school level, like a system, but you play against teams that don't play a system. So it's a lot of chaos, in the NHL, even in the American League, you're playing a system. The other team is playing a system and you're trying to, go back and forth. It's a chess game, right? And, in the end, everything's just done better. It's not necessarily, a guy could be the fastest guy in the American League, but he gets up there. If he can't pass or, execute, he ain't going to play. It doesn't matter how fast he is. Sure. I think that's just the biggest difference. And you really notice it. I had a couple where I was in Nashville and I got injured and I had to go back and play the American League. And it was like, whoa, where was that guy? Like, why the hell wasn't he? Because in the NHL, he would have been there, but that's the learning curve, and that's why you're down. And I think that's why, like teams that utilize their American League teams and have guys play in the American League for, at least some sort of stint, notice those teams they're successful in the long run because they have these kids that are learning and then they come up young and they're good. They understand what's going on. You're usually playing the same system in the American League as you're on the National League. So when you get called up, it's just an easy transition. So it's just a lot of the little things are just done better.
We had a player on, or coach now, former player on, by the name of Alex Hicks. And he played quite a while in the AHL, and one of the coaches or supervisors told him that he is good enough to score 100 goals in the AHL. But if he wanted to make that step up, he had to learn how to play the physical game and drop the gloves once in a while. Do you feel that that's maybe some of the system that you had to overcome to get from the AHL up to the NHL?
I mean, I didn't ever have to drop the gloves. We always had guys to do that. Okay. So, but I think for me, it was, for a goal scorer, I think it's hard because usually a call up, they're going to promote somebody off a third line. If somebody on your first line gets hurt, they're going to promote a second line guy up to first line, third guy up to second line, fourth to third, and you're going to get called up and play fourth line. Well, a guy who scores 100 goals isn't a fourth line player.
No.
So, and that's the mentality. Then when you go up to play fourth line, you got to play like a fourth line player to get noticed. My call-ups, I was going up to be who I was. I was a shot blocking defensive defenseman, and it was easy for me to step in and do what I was good at doing.
Okay.
They weren't expecting me to come in and score goals. Where a goal, like I said, the goal scorer playing fourth line, who's not used to doing that, especially if you're that good in the American League and now you're expected to go and block shots and run overs and play against like a Bugard on a fourth line against a fourth line. That's not what you're used to, but it's all about that chance that you get. When you get that opportunity, you got to make well. And if it is playing fourth line and doing a good job in that fourth line to get you another game, then that gets you another game. But it's tough.
So in your experience coming up, I know you took the advice of Coach Noel and Coach Richards and obviously did what you needed to do and had a great NHL career. Do you ever remember any guys that they maybe took aside and tried to get them to play a different way or look at things a different way, and they didn't take that advice? And what ended up happening to those guys?
I mean, from my time in Milwaukee, not that I can recall. I mean, a good majority of us on that team, we all went to Nashville together within a couple years.
Oh, wow.
So it was, and that's kind of, looking at the questions beforehand, it kind of answers one of the questions later on. Like, Nashville has always kind of been like home. We all went up together. We were all young guys. We all lived within half a mile of each other, and we kind of all went together. It was just one of those things. So I think Claude and Todd, Todd was our, he was like the nice guy. Like, Claude would rip you apart, and then you'd look at Todd, and Todd would be like, "It's okay.
Good cop, bad cop.
You did this well. You did this well. He's pissed about this, but you did this well and this well. Like, keep going. You're good." But like I said, as you got to be a veteran and with Claude, and you could go into the office and just, go in there and talk to him easily about anything, talk to him about your game. And it was just a lot different. I think we all played because they were so good to us. I think everybody took everything they said to, maybe a couple of the European guys early on that were kind of like, "Oh, screw this guy." And you just didn't see them then. It was, they got either moved or they went with the guys that were going to go with, with what we were doing and how we were building. And David Poyle was around a lot. While we were all there. So he saw everything as it was going. It wasn't even really Claude and Todd having to move guys out. It was coming from the upper management. Like, this guy doesn't fit in. Like, we want to build this group. And I think it was definitely had to have been about 8 of us within the 2 years that all ended up in Nashville together. So
Nice.
Yeah.
You ended up playing 230 games for the Predators, 203 for the Wild, 17 with Boston, and 44 with Colorado. What were a little bit of the differences between the organizations, and which stop did you enjoy the most?
Well, Nashville, like, that's kind of the question. I mean, that was because where we started. I mean, Minnesota was great too. I got to play a different role than I did in Nashville. Not that I got to, I was still a defenseman, but I played a whole lot more than I was playing in Nashville. And not that I didn't play a lot, but, I think I was averaging like anywhere from 16 to 17 minutes in Nashville, and then come here to the Wild, and I was playing anywhere from like 18 to 20 minutes, which, is a lot of over games is over the year is a lot of time. And, I was relied upon. I wore a letter here in Minnesota. So, I mean, they all have their own place in my heart. Boston was awesome just because my family didn't go with me because I had 3 small kids and I was living in the hotel. They did come out and visit me a couple times for a good period of time, but we lived right downtown. I didn't need a car. I walked everywhere. I only needed a car to get to the practice rink, which was about a half-hour drive, but I was like 3/4 of a mile from TD Gardens. Everything was right there. All the restaurants, I was right on the wharf, could walk to anything. I mean, that was amazing. And then Colorado was just, we didn't have enough time there. Actually, Colorado was the place that we did more touristy things than ever because it was the lockout. So we missed the first half of the season. So we were able to go see a lot of stuff that we didn't see in other places that we stayed. But it was great. It was kind of the end, the way I look at it now. But great town. I mean, I think if we would have played there, 2 or 3 years, I had a 3-year contract there. If we would have stayed the whole time, we probably would have ended up living there when the career was over. But, things happen. And they happen for reasons, and sometimes we don't know, but I was out of there after the 1 year. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So you played with some great players, some of them current or future Hall of Famers. Who were some of your favorite teammates, and who opened your eyes on a daily basis during practices and games?
Oh, some of my favorites. I mean, not that he was at the time, but Shea Weber.
Oh boy, yeah.
He was, he's an absolute beauty. Had a great time with, that was kind of the group that we all, was him, Pekka Rinne. We were all kind of coming up together, and, obviously legends. Pekka's numbers retired in Nashville. Shea should be a Hall of Famer, I'm sure, by the end. I mean, not that he got a cup, but he's had a great run. And with Paul Kariya, we played with Paul in Nashville, same thing. I mean, dedication and Paul was a great dude, a little bit, if you want to talk about superstitious or routine, he's a beauty. He had you couldn't get near him. If he was stretching, he put a towel down. It was his square. You didn't get into his space.
He should have been a goalie then.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't. Don't even think about touching his stick, even moving it on the stick rack. He'd lose his business. And he had a lot of, but great guy. It was just, he knew what he needed to, how he needed to dial himself in to be the player that he was. And obviously he was a hell of a player. Yeah. I got to play with Peter Forsberg. I mean, on the end of his career, it would have been really interesting to play with him at his peak, but that was when he was having all the foot issues and stuff like that. But he was an amazing guy, even with all his problems, just what he would bring to the game and what you would see him do in practice. You'd just be like, what, those guys are the guys that you're standing in line, you're going to do one-on-one drills, and you're like, you want to switch? Or my lace broke, or like I'm on the bench changing my laces out because they're like, what are you doing? Oh, my lace broke, coach. Sorry. No, it's because Fopa's going, no, my lace. Like just stuff like that. I mean, Jason Arna was a unit. God. I think
you could go on all day. Probably,
Andrew Burnett here in Minnesota, who's now having a great coaching career, and Andrew was great, and not maybe the quickest guy, but some of the things he would do with positioning and the way he would play down low is, I got to play with Burnsy, and kind of at the beginning of Burnsy's career, but now when's he going to stop playing? I mean, the kid can skate forever. A kid, he's getting to be an old man now, but he can. I think he's going to play for another 4 or 5 years, just based off of how he's a machine, and he was great to play with. The list gets long, but even playing against guys, I got to play against some of the greats, Joe Sakic, and guys like that is great.
Who was when you were in front of the net defending your net? Who was the toughest SOB you had to go up against in the front of the net?
Back in those days, playing Detroit as much as we did, Johan Franzen and Holmstrom were just menaces. And you ended up, when we first came in, those first years before the rules kind of changed, you tried to go there and it was a battle. Who could cross-check each other the most? And then they changed the rules a little bit, and it all became about fronting players, and that's where kind of the blocking the shots kind of came more. Like, you wouldn't want to let them box you out. You had to get out in front of them, and if the puck's coming, you got to block it, because otherwise the goalie doesn't see it. Most of the time it ends up in the back of your net, or you're hoping it hits the goalie somewhere because they don't know where it is. But those two were just absolute nuisances to play against. And we seen them so many times back in the old scheduling, where we would play each team from our division 8 times, and it was just, you dreaded those days. And especially you got Zetterberg on one side, Datsuk on the other, and you got Nick Lidstrom and Rafalski on the point, and you're just like, what the hell are we going to do? No matter where you went, they were going somewhere else, and it was just a nightmare. But obviously, just you learn so much from just playing with them, and by the end you figure them out. But they were some great teams that we got to play against.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you played with the young Jared Spurgeon. Did you see him developing into the player that he is today?
I think so. Spurgey his hockey sense was just off charts. And I think that's the biggest thing. He's not a big guy. He wasn't going to be a guy that goes and runs a bunch of guys. When he has the opportunity, he can get you, he's going to get you. But it's his positioning. It's the way he plays the game. He can skate. He's a captain for a reason. He does the right things, and that's what you look at. You don't need a raw guy, and he definitely wasn't a raw guy when I was there, because he was a young guy. But I don't know how he is now. But I am assuming he just does things by example, and guys follow because of his work ethic and what he does out on the rink.
You got to play with some beasts: John Scott, Bugard, Chara. Was that a lot nicer having them on your team rather than facing them?
Heck yeah. In Nashville, I got to play with Wade Belak. Jeremy Stevenson actually saved my life. My first call-up was actually against the Wild, and Boogie just absolutely lays me out, and Jeremy Stevenson comes over to fight him. I'm like, oh, don't fight that guy. But he came over and he stepped in, and I mean, it was a fairly even fight. I don't think Boogie didn't beat the crap out of him, but I'm like, you don't need to step up for me. I mean, Donald Brashear played for Philly back then. I played Minnesota the first night. The second night we played Philly, and Brashear laid me out, and coming to welcome to the NHL. Two of the bigger guys in the league at the time, just absolutely. But I mean, John was great. John Scott was my partner for a little bit, and it almost gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. You know, the guy would look at you and be like, "Hey, he's over there. I'll just call him. Like, he's coming."
Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah, and same thing with Boogie. I mean, he was, those are the guys, especially back in the way the league was. I mean, you needed those guys to protect your player. You needed, for Koivu and for, Andrew Burnett and, Havlat, like you needed those big guys to be out there to patrol. And that's just the way the league was. I mean, it's kind of getting back that way with that Matt Rempe and Revo and those guys out there. But I mean, that's the way it was. Every team had at least one. I mean, we happened to have two in Minnesota, which was always nice. But it's just a game. It just changes the game a little bit, especially when they're out on the rink.
One-on-one, you're the only defenseman skating backwards. You got a guy coming down on you, and it's just him, you, and the goalie. Who do you not want to see with those silky hands coming down on you?
Now?
Yeah.
Today, I'm so glad that I'm not playing against McDavid, McKinnon, any of those guys, Bedard. I mean, these newer players. But, I mean, back then it would probably be, just straight up skill. You don't want to see Datsuk on a one-on-one.
Oh, sure.
The second you look down at the puck, you were beat. I mean, that was just, there was a lot of guys that, like an Ovechkin one-on-one, you knew he was trying to look to shoot between your feet. So you tried to do everything you could to keep stick on puck. You learn the little nuances. You got to know what hand everybody is. But Datsuk, he would probably be my biggest fear. Havlat was good. I hated going against Marty in practice one-on-one because he was same thing, hands. The second you look down and something else happened and you were looking behind you and he was already gone. So, there was, I think any one of those, you're a top forward in the league. Now even like a Pasternak, I wouldn't want to go one-on-one against a Pasternak. Their hands are just so much, they're just so good and they can be very hypnotizing, I think. So.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, going to give a couple more shout-outs. Hertel Law, the law firm you want on your side. Focusing on criminal defense and personal injury, Harry Hertel has been obtaining results for clients in the Chippewa Valley since 1981. When you need legal help, if injured or accused of a crime, call 715-832-4330 for a free in-person consultation. And Northwoods Therapy takes pride in being your choice for physical therapy in the Chippewa Valley since 1981. Northwoods Physical Therapy is a clinic where you can receive the care you deserve and are treated like family. And Kelly Heating and Electric, dedicated to serving their customers' heating and electrical needs efficiently. They have been named one of Bryant's Medal of Excellence winners. They provide expert advice from a friendly staff that can provide you with the knowledge you need to make the best decisions on your next electrical, heating, or air conditioning project.
Your last season with the Wild was 2011, 2012, and Darby Hendrickson came in as an assistant coach, and he's still there. As a former player, he's now stepping up in a coaching role. What dynamic did he bring to the team?
I think, when we were there, I think Darbs he was a great guy that you could go lean on. Like sometimes you don't always feel like you can go, to the coach and be like, hey, this is how I'm kind of feeling. Like Darbs was a guy that maybe you were sick and you're trying to, a lot of times I tried to hide a lot of things from the coaches, hurt injuries and stuff like that. And Darbs was just a guy you could go to and just be like, hey, like, this is what's going on. Like my shoulder's really bad right now. And he'd kind of be our in-between and he'd go up to coach and maybe give the coach a little, hey, he's kind of been keeping this a secret. And he was that guy that you could kind of lean on. And when I was there anyways, and I don't know what his role is now, but to be still there after coaching change after coaching change after manager, all these things. He's obviously doing something right, and the guys are keeping him around. And I'm guessing it's kind of in the similar type of role where, he's a guy that you can go to and you can lean on when things aren't maybe going the right way. And he's willing to put in the work and help. I mean, he'd be out on the ice with us, and whether we're getting bag skated, he was out there. Whether our bag skate turned into a 3-on-3 game, he was out there. So a lot of good things. And you need those guys. I mean, it's a long year, and you need sometimes just somebody else to lean on other than, maybe going home and complaining to your wife or your girlfriend. Like, you need a guy that who's been there. He's been through the grind. It just makes it a lot easier.
You're standing on the blue line and you look to your side. What partner do you want next to you?
Oh, now I want Cale Makar or Hughes, right? Because I just give them the puck and I could just be a defensive defenseman. That'd be beauty. I mean, I played with a bunch of. I mean, I loved playing with Burnsy here. I mean, I'd love to play with Burnsy now. And Burnsy was a little raw when I got to play with him. I think that's why they put me with him, because it was like, oh, we'll just let Burnsy do whatever he wants, and hopefully Zanon can bail him out. I played multiple years with Marek Zidlicki, and I think me and the two Z's, we had some good chemistry. We were able to, and he was kind of my, offensive guy that I could, if I was in trouble, I knew I could get him the puck and he would do the right thing with it, versus me trying to do something dumb and pass it to the middle. I'd let him pass it to the middle and make the play. And, but I think if it could be anybody, I think I would have loved to have played with like a Lidstrom.
Oh, sure.
Just steady Eddie. He never really did anything flashy. He just got the job done, and probably super easy to play with, and so I think it'd be great. I mean, I had a short run with Shea Webbs, which was good. He was young. He was actually I was his veteran roommate on the road in Milwaukee, and so kind of he was always great to play with. Just put it in his wheelhouse and let him just hammer it at the net. And you were most of the time lucky to get an assist because he'd just blow it through somebody. But I think Lidstrom would be an amazing partner.
So you had two Hall of Fame assistant coaches in Mike Ramsey and Daryl Sador. What were they able to help you in your game?
I think those, especially at the NHL level, I think it's the little ins and outs and things, it's not always about being the fastest and being the strongest, but how you handle yourself, where are your positioning, and they would give you pointers on, what maybe help them, and where do they see when they're watching video that could help you. Like, you're 2 feet this way. If you're a foot this way, you don't even have to move, and like just because they see the game, they saw the game a lot differently, especially from there. I mean, Daryl was, he was an offensive guy, and so he saw the game a different way. And it's kind of what we bring, like me and Thomas bring to our coaching is, we just tell the kids like what we see. We see it differently than they do. They're 15, 16, 17 years old. This is how we see it. And then they kind of look at you like, oh, okay. Even our goalies, like your goalies have all these goalie coaches, and they're teaching you from the goalie position out. Well, what's the player seeing? So we try to teach our goal. Well, this is what we see. Well, why are you scoring on my glove side every time? Well, your glove's down here
because that's
open. So and we would and that's what I think those guys brought to the. It wasn't always. I mean, you're in the NHL. You're in the best league in the world. Now it's just they're trying to fine tune your game with little things that can help you along to be a better player.
Okay.
You mentioned the different nuances as looking from a player perspective or a goalie perspective. When you were on the ice on the point and you were rifling a shot, which goaltender was the toughest one you faced?
Oh, God. I mean, they were all. Well, I got my first goal. No, who did I score? Hasek was probably the most just chaotic. Yeah. You just never knew what he was going to do. Like, you're standing at the point with the puck and he's looking one way. You're like, okay, I'm going to shoot the other way. And then all of a sudden he's there because he's just flopping around. But he always seemed to make the save, and it was always that, he'd probably be the most. And back when I played too, I mean, we didn't play all the teams in the East every year like they do now. So we missed I didn't really think I only played one maybe 2 games against Lundqvist, who would be Henrik would be. I mean, he's always great. And I think now the way the position's played, that all the goalies, I mean, they're so big, they all can move, and there's not a lot of that. Like Hasek was just so unpredictable. You just never knew what you got. I mean, I got to practice with Pekarene every day, and he was a guy that we didn't score a lot of goals in practice. I don't know if that was a good thing for us, but he hated to be scored on, and he'd screw up more drills than anybody because it would be a 2-on-1 and he'd battle to the bitter. He wouldn't let you just tap it in the back door. He was making the save, and then the next group's coming down and he's laying on his belly, and you're like, well, and coach would be like, what are you doing? Well, I played out that one. But you got to love a guy for that. He just hated pucks in his net.
Oh, I love it.
So,
yes.
I mean, I would say Hasek was you look up and it was just like, oh, this guy again, type of thing. So,
sounds like the Red Wings were always a bad.
Well, we played the Red Wings so much. I think I got 9 career goals. I think 4 or 5 of them were against the Red Wings because we played them so many damn times over my time. So we felt like we never played anybody else. We were either in Detroit or Detroit was in Nashville. So, and we played them multiple times in the playoffs.
Oh man. So Greg, you finished your career with the AHL San Antonio Rampage. How'd you know it was time to hang them up?
Well, I really didn't want to hang them up. I was trying to get back to the NHL. Thought I could. I mean, I suffered a couple serious injuries I tore my groin my last year in Minnesota, which kind of took me a while to get back to feeling normal. And then, Colorado, we had the shortened season. We weren't a very good team. My statistics showed that. And, just was trying to work my way back. My first year in San Antonio, I ruptured my Achilles 3 days before the season started. Man. So that was a 4-month process coming back. Got back at the end of that, played decent, was able to sign another contract actually signed a 2-way with Florida that year. So that they liked something in my game and, thought I played well. I was the captain my last year of that team, dislocated my elbow that year and chose not to have surgery, just braced it up and played with a brace. And I mean, especially my game at that time was same in the minors. I was a little more offensive in the minors because I could be, but still defense. It wasn't like it hindered my game. But so over the 3-year span, 4-year span, there was a lot of, I think the body just started giving out. We moved back here from Colorado just to have kind of a home base, and I was going to from San Antonio, have a home base, and I was going to still go try to play. And I was training on my own, and it just kind of wore on, and teams weren't calling. And it was kind of like, you know what? I'm okay. I was able to start, going to the kids hockey and started that kind of process. And so I was probably mid-November where I was like, okay, I told my agent, don't even bother. I'm good where I'm at. And just started, didn't want to be part of anything hockey wise, just wanted to be with the kids. And they were small, and they'd been, my son at the time when we moved back here, I think he was 5, and he'd lived in 7 different houses. So, eventually you got to look at the big picture and what's better for the kids and the family, and running around chasing it and being here one year, there another year, it just wasn't in the cards anymore. And, it was easily to just kind of slide into the limelight.
Well, from a fan standpoint, you had a hell of a career. And as you look back, at your career, the coaches that have touched your life, you're giving back to the game right now as a coach here in Stillwater. Do you have any aspirations of moving up the ladder?
I wouldn't mind maybe down the line. The biggest thing that I like about coaching here at the high school is, what the season is. We don't travel. I think my farthest game's an hour. I can go to my kids' hockey game, coach, all on the same day, and which I'm really liking. So my daughter she was on the JV team for the high school this year, so I got to watch a lot of her games. My son's going to be a Bantam, so I didn't miss too much of his stuff, which is it's really important to me to be there as much as I can, and I get to do both. And coaching the high school team replaces that feeling of not being a part of a team, sure. Being in the locker room, talking with the kids every day. It fills that hole. I think when my kids are done, I'd love to maybe look forward to coaching at a different level, or trying at least, or I've kind of thought about maybe doing some scouting, possibly, just locally, which might come up in the future. But being home is kind of, it's nice to, like I said, especially now with everything being on video. I mean, I can be on the bus going out to EP and watch my kid play, and then coach and play an EP, and then come home, and I'm home every night. Yeah. It gets the road trip started to get long, especially once we had our third. I mean, my first kid, it was hard to leave. But you're all, and then you have 3, and it's like, oh, my wife hates me now. We've been gone for 2 weeks. And especially in San Antonio, it was the rodeo. The month of February, we would miss we were gone the entire month. We'd be gone for 2 weeks, come home for 3 days, and then go back away for 2 weeks because they had the rodeo at our rink. And that, it was, so it's nice to be home, being able to, do things with the kids and help out around the house. And so this is kind of the perfect gig for me right now. But I think I do have aspirations to, whether it's, I think the coaching college would be amazing. I mean, it is kind of what it is. What you're getting into. And so, but.
Was coaching always in the cards for you?
Absolutely not. I think I left my coach in San Antonio my last year was Tom Rowe, and he was like, "Oh, you're going to be a great coach. You're going to be a great." I'm like, "Guy, do I want to end up like you? Like losing my mind every day and sitting in the office and getting nothing done?" I'm like, "I don't want to coach. Like this looks like misery to me." And then it just, kind of I took a whole year away, and then my middle daughter actually got me back out. I had guys that, "Oh, come on out and coach." I'm like, "No, leave me alone. Like, just let me be dad." And then my daughter was like, "Come on out, Dad. I don't want to go out there." And she was 8. And I'm like, "Fine." So I started going out, and she kind of brought it in, and it was nice to give back and help the kids. And then the high school job, I was a volunteer for the 1 year. They came up to me and they're like, "Can you help us out?" Like, I'm like, "I don't want to get involved." And I watched a game, and I'm like, "I got to get involved. You guys aren't teaching them anything." So got involved, assistant coached, and then obviously got the head coach job. And it's been great. I love it. And I mean, I'm on the ice, I think now way more than I was even when I played. I mean, all summer I'm on 4 or 5 hours a day, but it's great. I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy it. So.
Greg, this has been great. Thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us. I can't tell you. I don't know if I've laughed this hard in a long time.
He's had some good stories, man. This is going to be a good episode for us.
Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't forget to leave a thumbs up or a comment on our social media platforms. It helps us stay in the game. Mogi?
Hey, again, a huge thank you to our special guest, Greg Zanon, as well as you, our faithful listeners. Please remember to visit our sponsors, Riverside Bike and Skate, Chippewa Valley Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Kelly Heating and Electric, Hertel Law, Raleigh's Coach Club, and Northwoods Therapy Associates. Please follow us on your favorite social media platforms, and remember, folks, until next time, keep your head on a swivel and stay on your inside edges.